Hi everybody, my name is Lisa and it's time again for another English verbling class, and this is going to be a reading class. And for this hour I chose an article from the New York Times about Brazil. So many of you probably have heard by now what is happening in Brazil, lots of protests and things. So this is a chance to read about it from the New York Times perspective, an author who wrote the article in English. So we're going to be doing a few things in this class. One is, of course, I will be reading out loud so you can listen to my pronunciation. You will also be reading paragraphs from the article so you can work on your pronunciation, and it's also a good chance to go over some vocabulary, some words, some terms that you might not be familiar with, some phrases, and of course also discuss a timely topic, something that's happening right now in Brazil. And so people have opinions about it, and maybe they have ideas. Some people might have experiences themselves with something like this. So if you would like to join the class, like I see you're asking in the Verbling chat, if you want to join the class, all you have to do is click on the reserve seat button. Might be right now, the blue button, but in a minute it's going to say join class, 1 ticket. So what that means is you need to have a ticket to join the class. You can buy tickets, or you can become a premium member. You can also go and get tickets different ways by inviting people and friends. Let me get that link so that people read that. There's some different ways. Even you can, but now you can also use PayPal. I believe you can use PayPal. So if you go to that verbling.com/tickets, it shows you how much it costs. It looks like it costs 1 ticket is $3. So if you want to try out a class, it's $3 US dollars. If you have 5 tickets, it goes down a little bit, but the best deal is the unlimited tickets for $45 US, and that allows you to go into as many classes as you would like. We have classes on Verbling almost every hour. We have lots of different teachers, and the teachers do different types of classes. I like to do reading classes and speaking classes, listening classes. I usually do classes at the intermediate or above level, and I like to do classes where we talk about things that are important to us and also read things that are happening like right now, real stuff. I don't usually do too many like English lessons like from textbooks or things like that. It's real life stuff. So if that's what you're interested in, you can come to my classes. Hi Sylvia, how are you?
Hello teacher. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
So Sylvia, you're the only one in the class so far, so where are you from?
What a privilege.
Yeah, all right.
The teacher just for me.
Right, exactly. So,
I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina.
oh, Argentina. Okay, great. So have you heard about what is happening in Brazil?
Yes, I've seen that on TV. Also, I read the newspapers. So I know that people is protesting because of the money that the government is investing in the football champion. Yes, the World Cup. Yes.
Yes. So we've read about that. I had one class a couple of days ago where I was where we were discussing what was going on, and yes, that's one of the big things is the expensive stadiums that they're building in Brazil. And Ricardo's here. He's from Sao Paulo, so he knows what's happening there more than we do, probably.
Yeah.
Hello, hello everybody. Hello teacher. I'm Ricardo from Canada.
Ricardo Brazil from Canada.
Say the truth, Ricardo.
Okay, I'm from Brazil. Okay, okay, okay.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad one Brazilian showed up. There might be some more people showing up. There were a few reservations, but people, who knows, sometimes things come up and you can't make the class. But we might have more people join us because we have plenty of room. But I thought it'd be interesting to read this article that I got from the New York Times because especially Ricardo, maybe you'll be able to speak to whether or not the article is representing factually what is happening right now. Of course, it's always hard to know exactly what's going on in times like this because there are so many people involved, the protesters and of course the police and the politicians, and so it's not always a simple story. So it can be a very complex story. But we'll see what the New York Times is reporting and how they're taking it. So this is from June 21st, and I'm just going to get started because you guys came to class on time, and if other people want to join, they can come if they want to. And otherwise, we're going to read and talk about this, and we'll use our time together. Okay? So let's see. It's June 21st, so that's a couple days ago. The title is Brazil Tries to Calm Protester Concerns, Rebuking Violence. So, of course, this is a mainstream media, New York Times. They're not necessarily very alternative, nor are they super conservative. So it's written by two people, actually, Simon Romero and William Neumann. So let's see what they say. All right. So here, of course, it says Brazil. That's meaning the Brazilian government is what they're talking about there. The country, Brazil, but of course the government is trying to calm the protesters, and they're rebuking. So that means they are going against violence. So they're saying they don't want violence. Of course, nobody wants violence. So that's pretty common thing to hear about when this is happening. Okay, so you guys are going to get to read a lot, so I'm not going to worry about the length of the paragraphs too much. So, Sao Paulo, Brazil. With cities across the nation heaving in the biggest protest in decades, President Dilma Rousseff of Brazil convened an emergency meeting of top aides on Friday and announced that she would pursue measures touching on some of the grievances stirring the unrest, including a national transportation overhaul and the use of all oil royalties for education. But she has floated her ambitious proposal before to use oil revenues to improve the beleaguered public schools, only to run up against stiff resistance from state governors who rely on the money to meet their budgets, leaving her ability to enact it in doubt. All right, first paragraph. Ricardo, why don't you read that first one? And hi there, Amparo.
Hi, teacher.
I read the first paragraph again.
Yeah, the same part that I just read, yes.
Okay, São Paulo, Brazil, with cities across the nation having in the biggest protests in decades. President Dilma Rousseff of Brazil convened an emergency meeting of top aides on Friday and announced that she would pursue measures touching on some of grievances stirring, meu Deus, the unrest, including a national transportation overhaul and the use of all oil royalties for education. But she has flouted her ambitious proposal before to use oil revenues to improve the, meu Deus, beleaguered public schools, only to run up against stiff resistance from state governors who rely on the money to meet their budgets, leaving her ability to enact in doubt.
In doubt, yeah.
Sorry.
Rely on, yeah. Rely. Okay, so let me go through it. There's a lot of things here. With the cities across the heaving in, so that just means getting bigger. Like when something heaves, it's getting bigger. So like a wave, kind of, it's heaving, like your chest heaves when you breathe in and out. It goes up and down. So these are the biggest protests in decades. So a decade is 10 years, so many, many years. She convened, that means she called together an emergency meeting. So she convened a meeting with her top aides. These are and her advisors and things, to figure out what they're going to do. And she said that they're going to pursue. That means they're going to go after, they're going to work out some measures, some kinds of, I don't know exactly what, but some kind of things, probably maybe work on some new rules or laws or policies that are going to touch on, so that means address, or that are going to meet some of the grievances, so of the complaints, some of the things that people were protesting about, that stirred the unrest. So stirring the unrest is like the grievances that started this unrest. So one of them that you probably heard about was the rise in the public transportation, and so in the cost of that, charging more money. So what they're going to do is an overhaul of the transportation. An overhaul means when you completely redo it, when you want to fix it. So the protesters were upset having to pay more money for transportation when the system itself is not very good. So they're going to fix it, she says. And then, of course, she also says here that they're going to use all of the money they get from the oil. So that's a royalty, is the money you get from something when you sell it. So the royalties from the oil reserves, getting oil out of the ground, they're going to use for education. But she has floated, that means she has said this idea before, and it made this ambitious, so it's a very perhaps idealistic goal that she has, a proposal, because the state governors don't really like this idea. This word here, beleaguered, means this word beleaguered is used to describe the public schools. It means they're not in very good condition. So it means maybe the buildings are not very good, maybe the teachers' salaries are not very good, the education itself is maybe not as good as it could be. So that's what that means. And then she's getting resistance. It means people, these governors are saying, no, we don't want you to do that, because they say they need the money for their budgets and to be able to pay their bills and stuff. So that's the first paragraph. Let's go. I'll read here, and then we'll have Sylvia. Her pledge came as the government put forward other small measures as well, like injecting new money to bolster transportation and pledging to better scrutinize financial corruption within its ranks. Brazil fought a lot to become a democratic country, and it is fighting a lot to become a country that is more just, Ms. Rousseff said. Okay, Sylvia? Hi, Huyen. Sylvia, will you read that?
Hello. Hello.
Hi, Huyen. How are you?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
Good.
Nice to see you.
Cool. Did you get the link and everything?
Not yet, but I can see the screen. Like
Okay.
your screen.
All right. I was trying to see if Sylvia was going to read. Sylvia, I don't hear you. Maybe your microphone is muted. If you're there?
Now? Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Good.
Okay.
All right. Cool. Go.
Her pledge came as the government put forward other small measures as well, like injecting new money to bolster transportation and pledging to better scrutinize financial corruption within its ranks. Brazil fought a lot to become a democratic country, and it is fighting a lot to become a country that it is more just, Mrs. Rousseff said.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So her pledge, when she pledges something, promises to do this, that's a pledge. She says she's going to do this. Injecting new money, putting money in to bolster, that means to improve to make it better, so to bolster the transportation system, and to better scrutinize. That means to really see how the government is spending the money. There's a problem in Brazil, I hear, with corruption, usually at the local and the regional state levels of government. So they want to better look at or scrutinize how people are spending the money. The ranks means the ranks of the politicians, the people are in the governors and the mayors and people like that. So yes, so she says it's become it fought a lot and now it keeps on fighting. So she says in a show, or they say, in a show of resolve, Ms. Rousseff and other authorities also lashed out at the growing violence among some of the protesters, denouncing recent attacks on government buildings, acknowledging their concerns about security ahead of a visit by the Pope, and in at least one case threatening to deploy the army to the streets if the demonstrations continued to intensify. I assure you we will maintain order, Ms. Rousseff said. Okay, Amparo, will you read that?
In a show of resolve, Ms. Rousseff and other authorities also lashed out at the growing violence among some of the protesters, denouncing recent attacks on government buildings, acknowledging their concerns about security ahead of a visit by the Pope, and in at least one case, threatening to deploy the army to the street if demonstrations continue to intensify. I assure you we will maintain order, Ms. Rousseff said.
Yeah, in a show of resolve. That's a phrase that you hear a lot when she it's an act of showing she's doing something that shows that she's made a decision. So it's her resolve or her decision. So but showing that she also talked about the violence, growing violence. Apparently there's some people who have been violent, although I understand most of the protesters are not violent. She is denouncing recent attacks. That when you denounce something, you're saying you don't like it, you don't want any more of it, it's not a good thing. So she's saying she wants that to stop. She denounced those. That means she didn't like those. And she is acknowledging, which means she is letting people know that yes, there are concerns about safety and security, and the government is going to take care of that because the Pope is going to be visiting pretty soon. And she's even threatening, that means she's telling you if the violence doesn't stop, we will deploy the army. We will send in the armed forces of Brazil to make sure that it is safe for the Pope. And so that's what that means. To deploy means to send in or to send out the army. And she wants to maintain order. So that means she doesn't want to have any more violence or protesters smashing buildings and that type of thing. All right, more than 1 million people protested in scores of cities across the country on Thursday night to excoriate the government on a broad array of issues, including political corruption, the high cost of living, and the billions of dollars being devoted to building stadiums for the 2014 World Cup and the 2016 Olympics in a country where poverty is pervasive and public education is often in shambles. Okay, again?
Okay. More than 1 million people protested in scores of cities across the country on Thursday night to excoriate the government on a broad array of issues, including political corruption, the high cost of living, and the billions of dollars being devoted to building stadiums for the 1914 World Cup and the 1916 Olympics, in a country where poverty is pervasive and public education is often in shambles.
Mm-hmm. So scores of cities, that just is another way to say that protested in many cities. So scores of city means many cities, lots of cities. And they wanted to excoriate the government. So that means they're speaking out against, and they are kind of accusing the government and basically shaming them. They just want to be listened to, excoriating the government about a broad array. So that just means a lot of different types of concerns or issues. One of them, of course, is the corruption in the government by the politicians who have been elected, the high cost of living, and of course all the money that's being devoted. It means all the money that's going to, especially just to build these stadiums for these two events, the World Cup and the Olympics, which is a big concern because while billions of dollars is being spent on these stadiums and other venues, at the same time, the poverty is pervasive. Pervasive means it's in a lot of places. It's not just in one little town, in one little part of Brazil, but in many areas of Brazil. And also that the public education system is in shambles, often in shambles, which means it's not very good. The public education, of course, there's probably many private schools that are doing okay, but in terms of the government paying for a public education, it's in shambles. It means it's kind of run down. It's not very good is what that means. But while most of the protesters have vented their frustrations peacefully, even joyfully at times, singing and celebrating what they call a mass awakening across the country, a violent subset has stormed public buildings, set fires, and smashed storefronts, bus shelters, traffic lights, and some ATMs. Okay, Ricardo?
O teacher started in Rio de Janeiro?
No, but
No.
right here.
But while
yeah.
Most of the protesters have vented their frustrations peacefully, even joyfully at times, singing and celebrating what they call a mass awakening across the country. A violent subset has stormed public buildings, set fire and smashed storefronts, bus shelters, traffic lights, and some ATMs.
Mm-hmm. So they are venting. That means they are expressing themselves. When you get upset and you're frustrated, when you talk about it or express yourself, that means you are venting. We could say you're venting. You're getting it off your chest, you could also say. It's a mass awakening. That means there's a lot of people are waking up to the different things that are happening. But there's this perhaps violent subset. The subset refers to like a smaller group of people that are coming to the protests they're doing these more violent acts, like smashing things and whatever. So that's one of the things that's happening there. Usually happens everywhere. Okay. In Rio de Janeiro, José Mariano Beltrán, the official in charge of security policies, said that if the unrest intensified, the army could be asked to increase patrols in various parts of the city to protect the integrity of people and of public and private and public property. Okay. That's kind of weird. Should just say private and public. Okay. Sylvia?
In Rio de Janeiro, José Mariano Beltrame, the official in charge of security policies, said that if the unrest intensified, the army could be asked to increase patrols in various parts of the city to protect the integrity of people and of private and public property.
Mm-hmm. So basically, if it gets out of hand, we could say, or intensified, if it gets bigger, the unrest, then they're saying that they will call in the army just to protect people and property, basically. The concern over the violent turn among protesters was enough that Gilberto Carvalho, a top aide to Ms. Rousseff, acknowledged it could affect the visit of Pope Francis to Brazil, which is scheduled for July. We have a series of complications and concerns, Mr. Carvalho told reporters in the capital, Brasilia. The situation is evolving so fast that we can't predict what will happen. Okay, Amparo? Where? Yes.
The concern over the violent tone among protesters was enough that Gilberto Carvalho, a top aide to Ms. Rousseff, acknowledged it could affect the visit of Pope Francis to Brazil, which is scheduled for July. We have a series of complications and concerns, Mr. Carvalho told reporters in the capital, Brasilia. The situation is evolving so fast that we can't predict what will happen.
Yeah. So I think pretty much you guys understand that. A series of complications just means several. They have a bunch of different complications that are coming up and concerns as these protests are evolving. So they don't really know what is going to happen. I heard somebody say that maybe Tuesday is the day, like generally every week now they're going to be protesting on Tuesday. I don't know if that's true, but it's evolving, it's changing, and nobody knows what is going to happen. Okay, protests continued to shake cities around Brazil on Friday. In Sao Paulo, the nation's largest city, protesters blocked roads leading to the airport, and thousands rallied at a downtown plaza to protest a measure backed by conservative legislators known as the gay cure that would allow psychologists to treat homosexuality as a form of mental illness. Okay, Huyen?
Yeah. Protests continued to shake cities around Brazil on Friday. In Sao Paulo, the nation's largest city, protesters blocked roads leading to the airport, and thousands rallied at a downtown plaza to protest a measure backed by conservative legislators, known as the gay cure, that would allow psychologists to treat sexuality as a form of mental illness.
Mm-hmm. So this is what I understand is the protesters. There's lots of different things that they are talking about. It started out as just the protest against the increase in the transportation cost, the price of the transportation. But now there more and more concerns have come out, and this is one that has come out. I guess there's some people down there in conservative legislatures, they call them, people who are making laws there, that want to pass this gay cure law, which would make it possible for the psychologists to tell their clients that if they're homosexual, that they can treat them to make sure that they are cured of their homosexuality, because they're saying that it is a form of mental illness. So a mental illness, something wrong with your mind. So people don't like that, so they're protesting against that as well. The protests continued even though one of the main groups that had been behind the original demonstrations here said that it would not call for any more marches in Sao Paulo. The group indicated that it had won the concessions on bus fares it had demanded, and that it was concerned that some members of allied groups, like left-wing political parties or social movements, had been singled out and beaten up at the demonstrations. All right. Ricardo? This one right here, the protests.
Start with.
Yeah, the protests continued.
Let me find here. Just a moment, please.
Sure.
The protests.
You see where I have it highlighted?
Okay. The protests continued even though one of the main groups that had been behind the original demonstration he said that it would not call for any more marches in São Paulo. The group indicated that it had won the concession of bus fares it had demanded, and that it was concerned that some members of allied groups, like left-wing political parties or social movements, had been singled out and beaten up at the demonstration.
Mm-hmm. So, like I said, this started off as mainly the bus fare increase, and so some people believe that they got their original demands, let's say, the main thing they were marching for. They got what they wanted. They had won the concessions. That means they got them to lower the bus fare. But they were concerned that some of these other groups were being singled out. Singled out means they were being taken aside, and they weren't really focusing on everybody, but they were just focusing on these people right here, the left-wing political parties or social movements, and they were beating up some of the demonstrators from these groups. So he says, we won the fight, so we are going to take time to think about what to do next, said Rafael Siqueira, a member of the group Pase Libre, which had pushed for the rollback of a bus fare increase. In Ribeirão Preto, 1,000 people attended the funeral of Marcos Delefrate, an 18-year-old boy who died after being struck by a car on Thursday. Military police officers escorted the mourners, and the cavalry positioned itself in front of the cemetery. The protests claimed a second victim on Friday. Cleonice Vieira, 51, a street cleaner in the city of Belém in the Amazon. Okay. Sylvia? We won the fight.
Yes.
Yes.
We won the fight, so we are going to take time to think about what to do next, said Rafael Siqueira, a member of the group Pase Libre, which had pushed for the rollback of a bus fare increase. In Ribeirão Preto, 1,000 people attended the funeral of Marcos Delefrate, an 18-year-old who died after being struck by a car on Thursday. Military police officers escorted the mourners, and the cavalry positioned itself in front of the cemetery. The protest claimed a second victim on Friday, Cleonice Vieira, 51, a street cleaner in the city of Belém in the Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so they won the fight. They're going to take time. That means they don't know what they're going to do next, but they're going to figure out. And let's see, the rollback. So a rollback is when they take it back to where it used to be. So they increased the bus fare, but then they rolled it back. So they took it back to the other price. And they're saying here that unfortunately one boy died by a car. And so the military police was there to escort. When you escort somebody, it means you're in front of them, walking in front of them to make sure nothing happens. So they were escorting the mourners. The mourners are the people who are sad, and they were mourning his death. So they were there, and of course they probably didn't want to have any more protests or something. And then also another person died. We don't know how that person died there. Brazilian news organizations reported that she had died of a heart attack after a tear gas canister exploded nearby. Yeah, I read that. As the protests continued, the National Development Bank, known as BNDES, announced that it had approved more than $1 billion in loans to expand the metro system in Sao Paulo, the city where the bus fare increase set off the initial protests. And in Brasilia, the finance ministry said it had created an inspector to review allegations of corruption, one of the main issues that has driven countless thousands to the streets in recent days. Okay, Amparo.
Brazilian news organization reported that she had died of a heart attack after a tear gas canister exploded nearby. As the protests continued, the National Development Bank had approved more than $1 billion in loans to expand the metro system in Sao Paulo, the city where the bus fare increase set off the initial protest. And in Brasilia, the finance ministry said it had created an inspector to review allegations of corruption, one of the main issues that has driven countless thousands to the streets in recent days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tear gas canister, that is the like a can that has the tear gas in it. Tear gas is the kind of thing that if you see pictures, the police will sometimes spray or they'll throw it and then it'll make smoke and stuff, and so people move out of the way. It exploded nearby where she was, so that's how that happened. And so it looks like they're going to give money to expand, to make it bigger, hopefully also to make it better, because that was one of the problems too. And that is why they were protesting initially. Initial means in the beginning, so the beginning protests were set off. That means that's the reason why they started. They because of the increase, the fare increase. The bus fare is the amount of money you pay. The fare is the price of the bus ticket. Okay. And then they're going to review allegations. So allegations means somebody has said the government is corrupt, and that is an allegation. If you are accusing somebody of some kind of wrongdoing or something, that's called an allegation.
This is a serious allegation.
Yes, it's a serious allegation. Hi, Goliath.
Hi, how are you?
Yes, I think it's a serious allegation, but not something surprising to many.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like many Brazilians already know that it exists, but maybe they haven't been able to do anything to stop it, and now they want to address it. So it looks like perhaps the government is going to listen, and we'll see what happens there. It has driven countless thousands. So countless just means there's so many you're not going to count them. So it just means a lot. All right, but many protesters said the measures fell far short of what was needed. They have been promising lots of things for many years, but it doesn't go beyond that, said Jennifer Novas, 18, a physical therapist. I don't know if they understand what is really happening here, but it's been many years, and we are thirsty. We want everything, and we want it now. Okay, Goliath, why don't you step in there and read?
Yeah, sure. But many protesters said the measures fell far short of what was needed. They have been promising lots of things for many years, but it doesn't go beyond that, said Jennifer Novas, 18, a physical therapist. I don't know if they understand what is really happening here, but it's been many years and we are thirsty. We want everything and we want it now.
Yeah. So they are not too hopeful, it sounds like. The measures fell far short. That means that they did not address the concerns before. They didn't live up to their expectations. So some Brazilian people, here's an example of this lady, believe that they've been making a lot of promises, but they haven't done anything really. And so now that's why many people are saying it's enough, and now's the time we want really things to change. And so that's why she's saying we are thirsty. It means we want it now. We don't want to wait anymore. Another protester, Bruna Santana, 22, a student, said the government was not serious in its response. They only want to shut us up, she said. Okay, Huyen.
Another protester, Bruna Santana, 22, a student, said the government was not serious in its response. They only want to shut us up, she said.
Yeah. So some people don't believe that the government is really taking them very seriously, and maybe they just want the protesters to stop so that they can get back to normal. We say business as usual. And so that's what the feeling is for some people in Brazil, that they're not really telling the truth. So let's discuss this now. First of all, are there any words or any phrases that anybody wants me to go over, something that you didn't understand in this article? Did you guys pretty much get it? I think, you don't have to understand every single word, but it sounds like you guys got the gist of what it is and what's going on in Brazil. And so I'm wondering, Huyen, what have you been hearing about this in your country? Do you know?
About the protests in Brazil?
Yeah.
Yes, I've heard about that.
Yeah.
But I didn't really have time to read up on that.
Yeah, right.
So this is my first article.
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, so the corruption that I've understood that we talked about in the last class when we had a few more Brazilians with us was this idea of nepotism. You guys familiar with that word, nepotism?
No.
Okay.
Yep.
Nepotism is a word that describes the when you give people in your family or your friends jobs. So, for example, what I have Brazilian people have told me is that many of the politicians they hire their family members to run just to have jobs basically, and that's one form of corruption. So instead of hiring other people who are maybe better qualified for the job, they're using the money, the budget, that they have, the money that they have to spend in their maybe local governments or their regional governments, just to hire people that are in their family, even if they don't really have real
So,
jobs and are working. So
Lisa, can we
yes.
say it's bias, something like that?
You can say it's a bias. But it's a special word, nepotism. It actually really refers to when you give, yes, like a preference or a bias or to your family members. So, and it means it's kind of a negative thing usually, because it's like when somebody might be more qualified, and perhaps if you have your own business, it's okay. Maybe you have a family business and it's okay to hire your son or to give the business over to your daughter or something like that. But when you're using taxpayer money, you're a government official, you were elected, you're not usually supposed to do that. You're supposed to put an ad out, and people are supposed to come in and apply for the job, and then you're supposed to pick, the person who you think will do the best job, not just give jobs to your friends and your buddies and your family members because you like them, So that's the reason why it's considered corrupt, because you're using taxpayer money to basically kind of like for yourself and for your friends. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that they're protesting about. Sylvia, I'm wondering in Argentina, what are they saying about the protests going on in Brazil? Have you heard very much?
Yes, and I understand Brazilians because here it happens the same things.
Yeah.
So I got now the meaning of that nepotism,
Yeah.
and I think that happens here too. So I wonder, and I would like to ask Ricardo, if the protesters, how they make the protest, because here when people go to the streets, they go with pots that they hit the pots. You understand what I'm? Yes, make noise with pots, and so do they do the same thing there?
What is hit the pot?
Do you know what a pot is? Like a cooking pan or something? Like you take off the stove and you take it and then you would hit it to make noise? Pots.
Yes.
Goliath, do you know the word
No.
pots? Okay, I'll show you what a pot is.
When
Pots
you are cooking?
Yeah, pots and pans. So
yes.
Something like
I know
this.
pan. I know pan when you fry fish or.
Yeah, a pot is more like this though. It's a little bit deeper, so you might boil water in it or cook pasta or something like that. A pan, usually a pan or you can use both pans or pots, but pans usually we say are like the thinner ones where you would fry up a fish or something like that. But here, this is pots and pans right there, like that.
The pot is deeper.
And here,
yeah.
Okay.
Here we take a, suppose we take a spoon, or a knife, or something like that, and we hit the pot, and that's our protest.
Yeah.
Making noise.
To make noise out in the streets. Yeah. Ricardo, have you seen the protesters yourself?
Yes, teacher, all day. And I
Yeah.
hope it's continues
Uh-huh.
because I know this test is just to learn English, but it's hard do not be revolted with these politicians.
Yes.
The Dilma president need to shut up and hide yourself. You cannot listen to Dilma anymore.
Yeah.
His daughter, his daughter has 20 companies. They are very big, okay? And I hope in the end the result is good. I hope it has not finished yet because nothing happened so
Yeah.
far.
So who
Brazil
has,
is a
wait a minute,
okay.
who
Go
has
ahead.
20 companies? Who has 20 companies?
Daughter of Dilma, Dilma's daughter.
Oh, Dilma. Okay. Her daughter has 20 companies. Okay. I see.
20 companies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I understand.
Brazil is a Pacific country. I am Pacific, but I
Yeah.
and many other people hope one day they take off his head in all the thieves of PT,
Yeah.
including the ex-president Lula.
Mm. Yeah. So it sounds like
Nothing.
the politicians were. I don't know that much about Brazilian politics, but what I'm trying to understand is it sounds like some of the politicians, they made it sound like they were supportive of the worker and the common people, but yet when they actually have power and money, they use it just for themselves. Is that true?
Yes, all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
So we can't listen to him anymore.
I see. So it's not really very honest. And
No, 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 no.
yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting because the president, she tries to say, oh, we're fighting for democracy, but really, she's not fighting for democracy. The people might be, but if she's um, not really representing what the people want, she's just kind of saying that she likes what they're doing, but yet doesn't really give them what they want, which is better healthcare services, better educational situations for the kids, and not using all the money just for like the World Cup. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So
Sorry,
go ahead, Sylvia.
even though Brazilians are very fan of football.
Yes, yes. Well, it's funny you say that because, of course, the football, or we call it soccer in America, it's very popular in Brazil. It's not like everybody in Brazil wants to spend all that money on soccer, She likes what they're doing, but yet doesn't really give them what they want, which is better healthcare services, better. Oops, you're playing. So does that make sense, Sylvia?
We like football.
Yes,
We
of course.
still like football, but we are not stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's one thing if, perhaps it could be true that having the World Cup in Brazil may bring in more money, but it seems like they've already spent a lot of money at a time when even the normal, the everyday people in Brazil are paying so much in taxes, and their quality of life isn't as good as it could be if they were using that tax money to help the people rather than to spend it buying new stadiums and things, building the stadiums and stuff, right? Yeah. Huyen, what about in your country? Do people protest very often?
No,
No?
we don't protest, even though we have, social problems in the
Yeah.
country as well.
Yeah.
But it's not that intensified.
Not common. Yeah.
What's your country, Yohan?
My country is Vietnam, so
Yeah,
it's pretty
Vietnam,
easy.
they don't have democracy, so it's obvious.
Yeah. Yeah, democracy is kind of a tricky thing, huh? Because just because you have elections, like now we know in like Brazil, just because you have elections doesn't mean it's really representative of the people. Just even here in the United States, of course, it's not actually a democracy, it's a republic, but people are democratically elected, and so you think that maybe the people will have a say, But of course, even in the United States, we have only really two parties. I mean, we have more, but they're not very important usually. It's only the Democrats or the Republicans, and so it's not a real big difference a lot of times. So maybe it's kind of can be deceiving because the United States can look pretty democratic or something, but of course we have our own troubles with the same types of things, with politicians not really paying attention to the people that they're supposed to be representing, so they don't necessarily always make good decisions that are good for a lot of people. They might make some decisions that are good for some people and some businesses, but that's the tricky part. So, yeah.
You have
Yes,
revolution spirit, Lisa.
A Russian
many
spirit?
times they
Many
times they promised good things, but
Yes.
then after you vote them, they do
Mhm.
other things, another, just the opposite.
Yeah, right, right. Yes. It's an interesting thing of the government because it's like it becomes its own thing, even though, some people might start out kind of idealistic, thinking I want to be a politician because I want to represent people and work in the government, but a lot of times it can be just the whole way it's set up is already corrupt. So it might even be hard, even in Brazil, for a politician who is honest and who really wants to help, maybe a local politician or something really wants to help the people in his city. It might even be hard just because of the system. The whole system might be already corrupt. Is that what you're saying, Sylvia? Would that be similar, do you think, for Argentina? Yeah.
It's very similar, and if one wants to be honest,
Yeah.
then the system lets him alone,
Mm. Mhm. Yeah.
and he is alone against the whole thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of hard to be the lone person. What about for you, Amparo? What's your experience with politics in well, South America?
It's almost the same
Yeah,
in all the countries, yeah, here in South America.
similar history, I think, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so similar.
yeah. Do you think that in the future more people will understand what democracy really could look like and that they would like to have that more, or do you think that it's kind of it's so common?
Utopic. It's utopic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just in order to get the certificate that you need for all the
Yeah.
for all the tramit, just for that,
Yeah.
because most of the people is not are not interested in to vote because nobody trusts in politicians anymore.
Yeah.
But you need that kind of paper. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because that's kind of where a lot of young people are in the United States as well. They think, here's the president there. Uh, a lot of them don't even think it's worth it to vote, even though that they can vote. In the United States, you can vote when you're 18. They don't necessarily vote a lot of times because they think it's not going to make a difference anyways. It's going to just, the politicians are going to do what they want to do, and so they're not going to listen to me, and so who cares, right? That's
But
what.
if you want to be rich, so be
Yeah.
a politician.
Yes. Well, it turns out that a lot of them are very wealthy, and in America, it's almost like you have to be wealthy now in order to even just pay for a campaign, even to just pay to get your name out there so people even know that you exist, so they might vote for you, because that's another thing that's hard, is that people with money they can go on TV more, they can send out more mailings, they can make themselves seen more than a person who's not as wealthy. So a lot of times in the United States, for example, people use their own money to go, do election campaigns, and usually the people who spend the most money often win. So So that's another way that it's kind of not a real fair or equitable system. It's not true that just anybody can really go out there and win an election. It's a lot about marketing and branding and, you know, convincing people. And it takes a lot of thinking to figure out all of the things, because a lot of times the government can be, all the things it has to deal with can be confusing. You know, not just the economy, but the healthcare system, the educational system. There's lots of different things that the government, especially, well, Ricardo, you know, Sao Paulo is so huge. Even the government just in Sao Paulo has so much to consider. You know, the transportation is just one thing, and it's huge compared to like a small city or something, small town. So.
Yes. But it's very clear for everybody. It's not because the 20 cents. Okay,
Yeah.
it's just the limit. Toleration is okay.
Yeah. Sule in the Berling chat, she says that the Brazilian politicians thought that it was just another protest, but it's not. It sounds like it's something that maybe it was people were thinking of for a long time, and now that it happened, now everybody's ready to put their time and their energy into making sure something changes. Yeah. Do you think that's true, Ricardo?
Sorry, teacher. Can you repeat, please?
Yes. Do you think it's true now that many people in Brazil now have the desire to really make a change, and that's why the protests are so big?
Yes, I hope the protests go ahead. Okay, don't stop it in this moment because nothing happened in this moment. So I hope more protesters next week. But we need to the PT take off the PT from the government.
So Sylvia or Amparo, do you think that if the protesters are successful in getting some of the things that they want, the changes that they want, do you think that might inspire other people in other South American countries to start protesting? Amparo or Sylvia?
We have had a similar situation even we have changed lately a lot of president, but we have stable from 7 years. From 6 years.
Yeah.
Now, but before that, the president wasn't in charge just to was complaining and they were removed, but it's not good. It's not good for anyone, for nobody, because nobody wants to invest in our country if you don't have a stable situation.
Yeah.
But now we have 6 years with this president. So.
Yeah, that seems to be one of the main problems nowadays, because for a country who wants investors to come in and tour, or tourists to come or something, the government is aware that they have to have a stable country and a place that is safe for people to come and want to live there or to visit there and spend money there. But at the same time, if the people who actually live in the country can't stand the conditions, then it's not really going to work, because the government is supposed to be taking care of its own people, not catering to foreign tourists and investors and things, even though their money might help them, you know what I mean? But it won't help them if there's corruption in the government and the money is spent badly anyways. So that's the trick. how to actually get money from the investors that are from other countries perhaps, or tourists, and then actually use that money to help the people in Brazil or whatever country who wants to do that, and not just for the politicians and their daughters and their sons and things like that. So so Ricardo, we're going to keep following what's happening in Brazil, and hopefully everybody will stay safe, and you guys will get more of what you want from your government. It's not always easy.
Hats off, William.
Yeah.
The bad thing, I think, is the violence.
Yes.
That's the bad.
There's always violence, even when there's no protest. So the media, you have to be careful because they can really make it seem a lot bigger than it is. So when you have that many people, it doesn't sound like it's very violent yet. I mean, there's million people were walking, marching. So it's a lot of people. So yes, I don't think, from what I saw, the protesters generally do not want any violence. But in fact, there are always people who are going to take advantage of that kind of chaotic system.
Yeah.
To ruin stuff like that. So we'll see how it goes, and hopefully it has a good outcome. So, thank you everybody for joining. Huyen, I was happy to see you in class again. I haven't seen you for a while, so thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you so much.
Say it again, Huyen.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I said the article was very informative.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
There's also some good videos if you guys want to learn more about it and you want to learn about it in English on YouTube. If you just type in like Brazil, protests, whatever, there's some good videos in English where they're explaining what's happening and some of the laws that they're protesting, and then the elections that are going to be coming up and that type of thing. So it's interesting. It's certainly not the only country where this is happening, so there's always people wanting to make their governments more honest and more accountable so that the people benefit from the riches of the country, because obviously Brazil is a very wealthy country in terms of natural resources and nice lifestyle and lots of beautiful places. So it's good. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. See ya.
Bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.